Hi, everybody. This is Maya Good, and this is a book review of The Heart Goes Last by Margaret Atwood. This video is going to be full of spoilers, so if you don't like spoilers, just click out of this video. If you want to listen to the podcast discussion of this book, I will include the link in the down bar. I read this book as part of the Literary Roadhouse Book Club. Here is my copy. I read it on my Kindle. And this book I this book left me very torn. The story is about Stan and Charmaine. They live in a near dystopian future, very near. Matter of fact, parts of it felt modern day, like an alternative current day, and the world has really just fallen apart. All the rich people have moved offshore, and everyone else, there's no money for police, there's no real economy to speak of, and they're really living a miserable existence when they see an ad on TV for a new town where part of the town is very beautiful, very 50s like, and the other part of the town is a prison. And everyone in the town splits their time between their home in the nice town and their home in Positron, the prison. And so the idea is that the privatization of the prisons is being sustained by people voluntarily going into the prison system in order to have a good life. Everybody in the town has a job, both when they're in the prison and when they're outside of the prison, and they really have what is supposed to be this perfect existence. Um, Stuff goes wrong. Uh, the town obviously isn't as nice as it appears on the outside, and eventually Stan has escapes in order to fulfill a mission, and his wife is left behind, and then eventually they meet up towards the end of the book. They both go through a lot. There is a really interesting female character who is very morally ambiguous and cruel and sexually abusive to Stan. Stan, has some major issues in his marriage. Charmaine feels, there's a lot of grass is always greener on the other side, and she's conflicted as well. She has an affair. The story it started out as novellas. I think there were five of them. And this was one of those cases where after the novellas were finished, they were kind of smushed together to make a novel. And that, I think, is the core of my problem with the book. The chapters are extremely short, they're quick to read. A lot of them are really funny. This is a very humorous book, it's a very fun read, which is why it leaves me so torn because while it's fun, it left me feeling like a lot of things that were interesting about the book weren't really delved into very deeply. I felt like it was a much more shallow read than my previous experience with Margaret Atwood. That said, I've only read The Handmaid's Tale, and I love that book with a passion. I love that book. Um, this book, I felt like a lot of parts of the book served really as plot devices. Not all the characters were fully fleshed out, and it left me wanting more. Part of it, I think, was because it started out as five novellas, and so they weren't really woven together really well. And the core plot was really the only plot. There wasn't a lot of underlying plot, and while there were messages, those messages and the meaning wasn't really it didn't get deep into it. There wasn't a lot of nuance to this book. Yeah, there were some funny parts. I love the idea of Stan getting, getting smuggled out of positron as like a Elvis sex doll. I find that absolutely hysterical. And Margaret Atwood, she approached some ideas and thoughts that were extremely uncomfortable. There are parts of this book that are extremely uncomfortable, and I think the humor allows you to read those parts and to experience those parts without being turned off and just closing the book. But I don't think this is her best writing. Um, if someone were to say to me, I've never read Margaret Atwood before, should I start here? I couldn't say yes. I would recommend they start elsewhere because I felt like the book was a letdown for me. That said, um, it was fun. So when I say I'm torn, I definitely mean I'm torn. the ending was very unsatisfying. All the ends were just neatly tied up together, and the very ending felt very tacked on and actually annoyed me on some level. So that is my book review. I'm going to try to do reviews of all the books I'm reading. I have some really serious reading goals for this year, and I'm sure I'll get better at these reviews later because I'm not very good at them. But yeah, that's how I feel about Margaret Atwood's The Heart Goes Last. Will I read it again? No. Um, do I feel disappointed that I read it? No. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it as a first read, but if you like Margaret Atwood and you've read a lot of her stuff, it might be a fun thing to dive into. But just don't expect the level of depth and nuance that you get in her other work. Um, and yeah, that's about how I feel about it.